A lot has been made in this election about candidate nomination numbers. For so long, other parties were talking about how the NDP was lagging behind in terms of getting candidates into ridings for this election. But as the NDP was saying, this was nothing new. The NDP takes longer to vet and nominate its candidates, largely because the party believes in offering a slate of candidates that represents the diversity of this country. And that takes some time. It's very easy to find generic white guys to run for office. It takes effort sometimes to build a truly diverse and reflective slate. And as we can see with the data coming out, that hard work was worth it, because the NDP, unlike any other party, is offering a slate of people that more or less reflect the diversity of this country. Of course, it's not perfect, but it is the only one that's even close. If we look at the data, we can see this in spades. 49% of the NDP candidates are women, 12% identify as LGBTQ, 25% are members of racialized communities, 8% are indigenous, 6% live with disabilities, and 6% are young people. Now, could a party always have more diversity within its representation? Certainly. But this is very good. And what this shows is that the NDP, unlike any other party, is really trying to manifest a belief in representative democracy. Representative democracy is not just you elect a member of parliament or a city councillor or a member of your provincial parliament or legislature and they make decisions for you and that you get one per riding. Representative democracy, for me and for many others in the NDP, is the belief that those representatives must reflect the reality and diversity of the people of this country. And for most of Canada's history, really for all of Canada's history, our parliament has never done that. For a long time, there was only men in parliament, even though the population was basically 50-50, sometimes more women than men. You know, our parliaments have never had enough Indigenous people or people of color or openly LGBTQ people. You know, and this says nothing of working class people. I mean, we're talking in more, standard demographic terms. Our parliament has never been representative, and that's because for a long time, all political parties, even the NDP to some degree, was not representative. But the NDP, more than any other party, is making a move to fix that. If you compare this to other parties, you can see this in spades. The Liberal Party here didn't really provide CTV News, who wrote a piece comparing the demographic makeups of the slates. They didn't provide them full data. But what we do know is that the Liberals are running less than 40% women. This is the party of so-called feminism. Justin Trudeau loved to tout his feminist ties and his feminist outlook, and his party is not even running 40% women. What does that say? The Liberal Party doesn't have the ability, doesn't have the desire to actually push for gender equality in its candidate slates. And maybe Liberals will say, well, the best people won. Well, what does it say about Liberals when more than 60% of your candidates are men? Do you really believe that men are that much better than women? Or do you maybe believe that there are systemic barriers to women's participation, both material and cultural and political? Maybe you guys need to do a better job of finding women to run in your positions. It's not enough to just appoint a gender equal cabinet. That's great. Don't get me wrong. You have to run candidates to the extent that they reflect the diversity of this country, and the Liberal Party has failed. The Tories give us more data, but their numbers are even worse in some ways. Only 31% of their candidates are women, and they are underrepresenting key groups like Indigenous people, LGBTQ Canadians, and not as much, but they are slightly underrepresenting racialized groups. Clearly here again, while giving us more data to work with than the Liberal Party, which is rather questionable that the Liberals are less open with diversity targets than the Conservatives. The Conservatives give us nothing really to celebrate. The Green Party is interesting because on some of these groups they do quite well. On women, they're just behind the NDP. They're really at 46%. That's quite good. You know, anything between 45 and 55 is something approaching gender parity, so the Greens should be commended for getting a relatively, gender-balanced slate for this election. But you have to look at some of the other groups. While they do well on LGBTQ Canadians, they do far, far less well on people of color, on racialized people. Only up 5%. They are the least diverse party in terms of race and ethnicity and things of those sorts. Even less than the PPC. I'm not going to talk about the PPC. They don't really keep this data, but some, cursory analyses by people have suggested that the party with the least amount of racialized people are the Greens, followed by the PPC, with the NDP at the highest. So all of the main parties, all of the main national parties are lagging behind on one or more elements of representation. Whether it's the Conservatives who lag behind on most of them, the Liberals who lag behind on women and won't tell us the rest, or the Greens who do well on some but very poorly on the others, none of them hold the candle to the NDP. And again, this is why the NDP takes longer to build their candidate lists. Maybe we could be faster, but to do the work to build a diverse slate is not easy. It's not easy. It's not straightforward. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes a real commitment by the central party, but also by riding associations to do the work to find people that reflect their communities. And it's great to see that work's paid off. No other party is planning to represent the diversity of Canada with their slate. If, for instance, one party was to win all 338 seats, which of course won't happen, but if that was to happen, look at which one of those would represent the diversity of Canada best. It's not the Liberals, Conservatives, or Greens. Not the PPC either. It's the NDP and only the NDP. Do you want a gender-balanced House of Commons? Vote for the NDP. Do you want Indigenous people to be represented in their true numbers? Vote for the NDP. Do you want strong numbers of young people and disabled people who can bring a unique experience about generational challenges and challenges that a lot of people don't see in their day-to-day lives? Vote for the NDP. And if you want a party that reflects the diversity of Canada between, white Canadians and racialized Canadians, again, vote for the NDP. This is what matters. Again, some people will call this identity politics. Some people will say, well, these things don't matter as much as more important things and quote unquote important issues. But I have to say that diversity is important. Not to the exclusion of everything else, of course, but it's important. It's important that we represent the people of this country. And there's a saying in a lot of progressive circles, nothing about us without us. Don't make decisions about us if we are not at the table to be a part of those decisions, to be heard meaningfully. Not after the fact, not, once the decision's been made and you're humoring us. Literally, we need to be at the table when the decisions are being formed to ensure we are included. And this is why representative democracy, where the diversity is reflected, is absolutely paramount. And the Liberals will not give it to you. The Conservatives will not give it to you. The Greens will not give it to you. The PPC will not give it to you. Only the NDP will, because they have shown the work that if you elect NDPers across this country, you will be electing a diverse and reflective image of this country. That's what Canada should be about, and that's what our parliament should be about.